Hey everyone, and welcome to the Kansas City Real Estate Broadcast. I am Bryan Reynolds, and with me is Joe Stevenson. We're talking today about coronavirus, right? The big
has that been in the news?
that's a big news story.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to send you some links to get caught up on what's going on, but we are under what is called a pandemic, and Joe, I've known you a long time. We're both the guy we go back way back to college, and I think this is the first time I've ever experienced anything like this, and I'm assuming it's the same way for you since we're not the same age.
Right. No, this is the first pandemic I remember. Yeah, it's a new reality. It is. It's strange. There's a lot of adjustment going on.
Can't leave the house. Well, you can, I guess, but you got to keep the social distancing and only leave for important things and everything. And I'm curious. I mean, the point of us talking today is to talk about.
Sorry, that was my cat's tail, by the way.
Oh, yes, obligatory cat in the Zoom meeting photo.
That's Chloe, the real estate cat.
So you've been in the real estate game for how long? Over 10 years now?
Yeah, because I first got my license when I was a junior in college. Now I've only been in it full time, solidly the last 8 or 9 years. But and don't do the math. Don't figure out I was in college more than 8 or 9 years ago.
So I guess we've just got into it like 2 weeks ago, or I mean, it was ramping up, but it got really serious like 2 weeks ago. And have you noticed anything just right off the get go, right out of the gate, like a slowdown? What's going on? What do you think?
Yeah. So this past week, whole week prior to this one, was our first like full week where everything was in effect, and it did drop things to a pretty slow pace. The week prior to that, everything was kind of coming to a stop. People were trying to figure it out, didn't know how seriously to take it, and things were tapering off, but it hadn't come to a complete stop yet. But everybody in the that I know in the Kansas City real estate world, whether it's a lender, a title company, a builder, everybody's taking it in stride and keeping things rolling. I've gotten emails from the aforementioned, periphery businesses, like title, lending, and things like that, saying what they've changed, what practices they're using. Our board of realtors has sent out recommendations for home showings, and agents are putting special instructions in, because there are still people who have listed their homes as a new listing since all of this took effect, and they are still coming on the market. So it's slower, and it's a new thing to deal with, but it has not ground the market to a halt by any means.
Yeah. I was curious about how that would play out, because you would imagine, and obviously leaving, we're ordered like the stay-at-home order. Like obviously you have to go see a showing if you want to see. If you're in the market to buy a new house right now, how do you wrap your head around that? Are we allowed to do that? I mean, from what I can tell, like, well, if you need a place to live, that's pretty serious. Yeah. And if you've been waiting to buy a house, and we're entering spring, and this is, and interest rates have been going down pretty steadily for like probably the last 2 quarters, maybe even 3. Yes. And like, this seemed like, I thought this was going to be a pretty hot buy. Like, I thought we were ramping up for a really nice buying season, quite frankly.
Things were shaping up, and like every economic indicator was pretty strong. Employment's still strong. And locally to the Kansas City market where I work, we had a lot of out-of-towners moving in over the winter. Anecdotally, that to me tells me there's people hiring, and these people who are moving to town don't have a house in town to sell, and so they're taking something off the market without adding something new to it. But yeah, it was shaping up to be a strong spring, and when you look at this issue from way back, it's an interesting, weird issue that, like I said, we both said we haven't ever dealt with a pandemic before in our lifetimes, but it's not a fundamental economic issue. Once this passes, there will be damage to the economy, but there wasn't anything internal in the economy that made it especially fragile with something like this occurring.
That's true. I mean, when I'm trying to think about, because it's hard to predict what's going to happen in terms of how we get back to whenever things level off, and we're trying to slow down the spread of everything. And the goal now, like as we're thinking about when we get back to work, especially in real estate sales, is what does that new normal look like? And you're right. I mean, it really wasn't. People were hiring, and the job market was fine. We did have that big spike in unemployment, but that was caused by coronavirus. And I mean, I guess when you think of that, I mean, the if it's at 3 million right now, and I can only assume it's going to keep growing for a while. What that's going to look like when it comes time to, like, okay, we can go back to work. Like, what does that look like? And it's hard to predict that when you've never been in something like this before. It's like, yeah, okay, so we have the all clear. We've gone through the 30 days. The government and the CDC or whoever says, no, we're good. Go about your business. Get back to work. All clear. Well, not all clear, but let's practice, keep the distancing going on and wash your hands and everything. But it's like, if we're at this much unemployment, rebounding that back to a place that's healthy, that kind of, and that kind of sticks in my head a little bit. Like, I wonder what that's going to look like, or perhaps it's one of those. I don't know what the unemployment looks like, how it spreads out across the country. If we're talking like this is mostly in New York or Washington, because we are Kansas City specifically, and who knows, like, because when you look at that coronavirus map, it's pretty heavy over here, and it's getting closer inland, but it makes me think like, okay, so we're insulated from that for a while. Eventually, things will keep growing. Hopefully the peak level won't be so bad. And then whenever unemployment, if it gets pretty bad here in KC, then we'll have an easier time to rebound and people get back to work and meet the the eligibility requirements for mortgages,
Yeah, I think so. And if rates are kept favorable for people to borrow money, um, that will certainly give everything a little shove in the right direction. And looking a little bit beyond real estate, if borrowing rates are low, credit is easy to get for businesses that were hurt by this. That they can come back pretty quickly. Because I think I could see a lot of pent up demand for a lot of things when this all blows over, and as long as people didn't spend all their cash reserves while they were waiting for it to blow over.
Yeah.
And money is still easy to borrow. Yeah, we could come out of this just fine. And it might not be as bad as it could be.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that. That makes sense to me too. It's like, and I guess that also comes with the lenders. What is the eligibility rating for if an FHA, if they were accepting 600 credit scores, or if they were like, that's obviously a pretty low one, and maybe if they're going to bump that up to 640 or 660, and if we've had 2 months of people who are 2 months behind on their whatever payment they're on, if it's a credit card or if they've missed a couple electric bills, what that's going to do. Like, okay, well, we gotta, if interest rates may be a 0 or a 1 or 2%, whatever it is. But if your credit score is at that mid 600 level, then there's some issues there. But it also comes with, I guess it also comes with, like, what is the size of the market? That is, no, there's plenty of eligible buyers out there. It's just maybe take a few more months for everyone to get back on their feet after we get back to work. It's stuff like that is just what I think about.
Well, and like you said a minute ago, Kansas City is a little more insulated from the big swings that the coasts get, and so we may not swing too far in the negative direction, because we're not as nearly dense of city as New York is, where it's really hitting hard. We're a little more spread out, and I think my unscientific observation is that I would think that type of geography, where we're living in more single family homes as opposed to dense apartments and things like that, I would think would help. And we don't use a lot of mass transit in Kansas City, so there's that. I wouldn't I wouldn't know where to catch a bus to go downtown. I don't know.
So if you were going to list a house and maybe going through like what kind of price to put on it, if it's like 2,000 square feet and 3 beds, 2 baths or something like that, would you think it'd be using like the same kind of cost per square feet right now or in 3 months than you did probably if this didn't happen?
3 months from now, it's hard to say. It may, there, like I said, there'll be people who have used their cash reserves. There will be pent up demand, but whether the buyer is able will be another issue. So 3 months from now, we may see some price adjustments. But the homes I'm seeing now coming on the market now, we're still using the same metrics. We're still looking at comps from 30, 60, and 90 days ago before this hit. So we really don't know any other way to do it. How do you adjust for this virus? I saw one home come on the market. The homeowners have only owned it since 2017, and they're asking $30,000 more than what they bought it for in 2017. And the market conditions really weren't that different back then. So there's somebody who definitely hasn't adjusted for this, and I think that house is getting showings. I drove by it today, and there was at it, and it's in a good neighborhood. It's on a great home site. It's got a lot going for it. It's got a finished lower level, and I think notwithstanding a coronavirus adjustment, it was priced appropriately. But 3 months from now, if all of a sudden the market locks up, we got to look at our pricing model again. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, that's going to be. I mean, I guess that's probably the issue right now. Is we're still only 2 weeks into it, so maybe we haven't really having a chance to catch up to it and adjust or anything, and who knows? But yeah, that is just really like when I think about like all the opportunity, like perhaps it could be a very simple it's hard for me to ignore the fact that people are not going to work or they're working from home or have been furloughed, and then ideally, I guess to me it just depends on what the job market's going to do whenever we get past all this and they tell us we can go back to work.
Right.
And I guess like you said, the cash reserves and how the banks respond to allowing lending. So yeah, I mean, it's strange times, that's for sure.
It is, but I got to say, it feels like everybody's taking it in stride. There's a lot of people bummed that like I don't know, it feels weird that baseball isn't starting now.
March Madness not happening. Oh God.
Yeah. Oh. I have a nephew who I don't know what's going to happen with his high school graduation. Will he get one? I don't know. And there's a lot of people who will kind of admit they're bummed, but it's like, well, what's the alternative? Everybody gets sick and we overwhelm our medical system. So I think people are being pragmatic and taking it in stride. And I think that, I'm one of those people who I think psychology affects the economy as much as anything. And people keeping that pragmatic psychology, I think is a bit of creating a nice little floor for the economy right now.
It's like that episode of South Park when you're like, confidence is what drives the economy. You got to be confident in it. And doesn't Stan makes like an unlimited credit card and pays off everyone's debt with an unlimited credit card?
That's right. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna play a video. Let's just react to this.
Okay.
This is all about. See how this goes. Sharing that. Share computer sound. And by the way, Joe, you have not seen this yet. Neither have I, actually. I just searched it, found something. You saw my search term up here. So
state company. And Heidi, one would imagine, I mean, there's basically been nothing that has been immune in the publicly traded markets, whether it's commodities, stocks, bonds. We're seeing reactions across the board. What are we seeing happen in commercial real estate? Are we starting to see valuations be affected yet?
I think it's a little bit too early to see valuations be affected, but I would be shocked if we didn't see a decrease in transaction volume. I think what we're going to end up seeing is a lot of deals get delayed into the second half of the year, assuming that there's some type of recovery. A lot of due diligence is going to be stopped basically by people who are unable to travel. So to the extent that somebody was looking at property in Asia, that deal is probably on hold.
Yeah, it's basically what we were saying.
Yeah.
I think she phrased it. She's much more eloquent than I think we are. But basically, delay. Yeah, that made sense to me.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It's the same sentiment I had. That what she brought up though that I didn't say is there will be fewer transactions, but so far outright raw value hasn't taken a huge hit. But it's kind of like I don't know, something about a virus that everybody's staying home from is different than when there was inherent systemic bad debt in banks like there was 10 years ago driving the economy down. That's a fundamental economic flaw. This is an outside factor that's going to affect it, but it probably won't crater it long term. Now, maybe that's a bit of optimism on my part, but I agree with her sentiment. And she's from the commercial world. She's talking about commercial real estate. I work in the residential world, but those two markets usually move together. The commercial may lock up even more. If businesses, their revenue is frozen. I could see maybe the commercial market locking up even more than the residential market, or locking up first prior to the residential market.
Eventually a drop in value, because we're talking about perhaps shifting a supply chain out of China, in some cases permanently.
Sure. I think, again, it's largely going to be a short-term reaction. I think if you think of real estate as a long-term asset, losing income, let's say if you're a hotel or whatnot, for the next 6 months shouldn't really affect long-term valuations. But to the extent that this becomes more of a pronounced problem and people become forced sellers, sure, there could be some downward price pressure.
So are we expecting a bigger disruption in certain sectors like leisure, travel, sort of entertainment? And is that where you're going to see the first shock?
I think the first shock is definitely on tourism and hospitality, and perhaps a secondary shock on retail, and particularly luxury retail, where a lot of Asian buyers comprise a large portion of the market.
So, I mean, that's kind of, there's some optimism in terms of real estate, I should say.
Yeah.
It makes it sound like that. I mean, real estate's real estate. Obviously, it goes through what we saw in 2008. That was more. I mean, that was dependent on what you look at the most. There was a lot of things going on there. The value of property is, it's finite, and we all know how people, they want property, and it's important. We need it for living and commerce and everything. So it's as valuable as ever. We just gotta live through the ebbs and flows of the value of it, and a part of that is people like you and me, just regular people, having access to credit to be able to afford it, so we can live and live in it primarily, or also invest in it.
I think that sums it up. But and that was interesting what you said about certain sectors of the commercial market getting hit first. It's not something we've talked about, but it is pretty intuitive and obvious that hotels are going to go down first, especially hotels in like vacation spots. Like I don't know what sort of contingency plans like Vegas casinos had, but they're nobody's there now, and probably won't be for at least another month and a half.
I think we fit right in on this panel too. We look good. They're all like suited up to the nines, and I'm wearing.
We would by far be the youngest people on that panel too.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. That's 2 and 3 in the. I don't know. I can't tell anymore. I've got to the point of my age. Like, I don't know if I'm older or younger than somebody anymore. Dodo, by the way, I've been wearing the same clothes for like 6 days in a row now, so I might smell on the table.
I thought I was picking up a whiff of something, but I didn't know if odor transferred on Zoom or not. I didn't know.
This microphone, that's a very good microphone. I actually had to pay extra for the odor experience. So
it smells like onion powder and feet.
Already, if you look at tourism into the U.S., I think the numbers are roughly about 2.9 million visitors from China into the U.S. And even in a city like New York City in 2019, it was close to 1.2 million. So you can imagine that's a lot of hotel rooms that are going unfilled, restaurants that maybe are a little bit more empty than they would. Hotel rooms that are going unfilled, restaurants that maybe are a little bit more empty than they would have otherwise been. Rooms that are going.
Look at them all.
The audio and the video matching up.
Look at all the people, the left on the three there. They all nod at the exact same time, like in unison. Check it out.
0.2 million. So you can imagine that's a lot of hotel rooms that are going unfilled, restaurants that maybe are a little bit more empty than they would have otherwise been.
What about data center real estate? Because we're hearing more and more of the tech companies.
Now, Joe, that's your primary. Yeah, you do new homes, but you're also in the data center game, right?
Is that like server rooms where they're housing data?
Well, I believe that's what that is. Yeah. So if you're Google or YouTube, you have a big server farm. All this video that we are recording that we upload, they need to store it somewhere, and they hire these big farms, these big buildings. And if you're watching, you should Google that. Google just search for Google server farm. You can see how big they are. It's just immense. They make a copy of the internet and they store it all in there so they can organize it and search it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've heard they're fascinating places. They need like cooling towers to keep the servers cool, from what I understand. But they try and keep the locations pretty secret so that nobody can, pull the plug on them and take the internet down.
Yeah, that would be a bummer. I like to think they have more than one, so like a little backup kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and some guy takes it all home on a thumb drive at night too, just in case,
Yeah. See, if you are in the data center real estate game, we are two experts who can help you appraise and sell and push that baby. So contact us.
Yeah, absolutely, and We won't tell anyone you're carrying the whole internet around in your pocket on a thumb drive either, So
talk about issues for their supply chains and then their profitability.
Sure. I mean, we've heard from Microsoft, we've heard from Apple, certainly. I think data centers, the demand is still going to be there. It's not something that's going to be disrupted by intermediate products. Or
I can't imagine data being affected by such a thing.
If anything, I mean, as more people are home and telecommuting and streaming right now,
there's probably more need for data. Yeah, don't you think? Have you checked we're using Zoom right now. Have you checked their stock in the last couple days? And I checked it this morning. It's been on an upward trend for a while now, but it really jumped up recently. So I think everyone's using it and they're having a good experience.
This is the first time I've used it. It's working nice. We are not compensated by Zoom, but
no, we're not.
We should be. What's up, Zoom?
Can you imagine how if you worked at Zoom right now, and I bet you it's just everyone, all hands on deck. We got to keep it going. It's got to be seamless. It's got to look good. And normally we have 3 million people on at any given time. Now we have 30 million people on. It's like, did we scale for this?
That would be a paradigm shift for that industry. Yeah.
Lack of manufacturing capability in Asia. So I would actually imagine that could be one segment of the market that holds up relatively well.
Realize that your specialty is commercial, but
you got to talk about houses, right? Okay.
Is the U.S. house owner or the person who's looking to buy a house somewhat protected because the domestic market is different, obviously, than the international commercial real estate market?
So one could argue that the domestic buyer is actually a little bit better off because we're now seeing a real drop in mortgage rates. We're close to that 8-year low. I think Monday's level was 3.34. So if you're looking to refinance or looking to purchase, that's clearly a positive.
Is this a stock for SPD Real Estate? This is an ETF fund?
This is an exchange traded fund. I don't know much about this particular one, but it's probably several real estate related stocks, maybe even some real estate investment trusts that are publicly traded in this fund. And yes, so if it's more than one stock and it's gone down that much, that tells you broadly speaking, yeah.
I would say that in terms of international purchasers of U.S. residential homes, one of the largest international components is the Chinese market. So to the extent that those buyers remove themselves, perhaps demand is not as robust. But certainly from a financing perspective, you can't argue with where rates are today.
What about this sort of bigger macro question, Heidi, which is, are we living in this new era of the end of globalism? When you talk about international buyers, are you concerned about that?
That's like a pretty big question. Like, and globalism as in like Chinese people or people from UK or Canada buying properties in America or something?
That's such a broad term. Globalism. Here they seem to be talking about Chinese investors buying real estate in the U.S., which I don't see that ending anytime soon.
All right. Well, geez. Well, I'm going to stop it right there then, because no one can relate to that. Very few people can relate to that. It sounds like no one's sounding any alarm bells right now for the primary market, like the family market or the primary residence market. So maybe people are like I do like the idea of like having a whole episode on Chinese or international investment. Like, how many international investors do we know? I'm like, none, and none of them watch this.
Well, yeah. If we could hook the international investor crowd, that'd be a big get right there. But
deep buckets.
I sold a home one time, and the buyer was an investor. And it was an LLC that was set up in Kansas, but I tried to figure out the source of money. I think it was somebody from a British bank snapping up residential properties to have as rentals in a much bigger portfolio. I can't remember exactly the steps I took to figure that out, but at least once out here in the suburbs of Kansas City, I think I may have sold a house to an international investor at some point.
Oh, big shot.
Yeah. After I made that sale, I bought some caviar and champagne. Yeah.
All right, well, let's do a roundup here. So it sounds like, obviously, we're going through some hiccups, but you sound like though things are slowing down a little bit, that's bound to happen if you have an order to stay home. But the industry itself, like you mentioned, it wasn't an underlying economic issue that caused it. It's a virus or a pandemic. So, like, there wasn't some sort of huge job loss or some sort of that's the result of that. So, and I believe they mentioned in the video that primary residences and families, considering the financing is low and the low percentages of lending and financing, they don't seem to be ringing any alarm bells right now. So maybe just hopefully this doesn't last longer than the beginning of May and get back to it. And if it worst case scenario, just delay it a few months into the second half of the year, and that's it.
And if you need to buy or sell a home, the right time to buy or sell a home is the right time for you. The market is not locked up, and we're taking precautions as real estate agents. And like I said, the lenders, title companies, all the places you have to go while you're buying or selling your home. Everybody's got a lot of sanitizer on hand, and limiting the number of people coming through the door, basically keeping the crowd small. And this is very much a one-on-one business anyway. I think as much as the economy will allow, we can keep our doors open and keep home sales going.
All right. Well, that makes me feel good. All right, Joe. Thanks so much. This has been Bryan and Joe. You've listened to Kansas City Real Estate Podcast. Please tune in again. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, where we're going to be doing this a lot more and talking more, and just talking real estate in Kansas City. So thanks for listening, and until next time, thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.